Well, before we get into today's main story, I do want to cover the fact that the European Court of Human Rights, by the looks of it, from a group of MPs, is taking the UK government to court and certainly over to task about, well, Russian interference and about the fact that, well, they've just done nothing about it. And because they've done continuously nothing about it, the MPs are taking them to court. Now, of course, they have until April to respond, but of course, at the moment, that's it. That's the news about that. So, even though, don't get me wrong, it is a big news story, it's just the fact that the European Court of Human Rights has sided with the MPs, bringing this complaint against the UK government over their, well, failure to act about very credible evidence, according to what the European Court of Human Rights says about Russian interference. Other than that, that's really it. And until at least we see this progress further, so certainly we're going to see this progress in and around April to how the government's going to respond to this. That's what we're waiting for. And then, of course, the MPs will get to respond back. And then this will sort of play out more. So while that is news, unfortunately, that's really it for the moment when it comes to that. However, yesterday, indeed, we had the big launch of the Levelling Up Fund. All this money was finally going to be released to all these left behind constituencies, that they were all finally going to receive their much wanted levelling up funds. It was all coming down. It was all trickling down. All these, that Tory promise of levelling up was finally going to be achieved. And yet, what did we say about this fund all along? It was not enough. And especially when you compare it to Germany, which from the 1990s to about, I think it's 2014, spent in the region of about 24 billion euros to achieve essentially East Yorkshire. East Germany is now at a higher prosperity level than even the north of England. So they have proved time and again that yes, leveling up can work, but you have to be prepared not only to put forward a comprehensive plan, but also the right amount of money behind it to be able to achieve those outcomes. And this isn't just something you can do very quickly, which is again what the Conservatives want, because they want quick wins. They're not really interested in sort of long-termism, especially now, of course, knowing that they're potentially going to lose the next general election. But hey, there you go. This is their proof that if you actually did it, it would work. And I know I've said this before, there's a lot of people from Germany who disagree with sort of when I say that sort of leveling up has or hasn't worked. And I know other people before have sort of put down in the comments really sort of how that's gone. But I'll say this now. Your government actually tried. It generally actually tried and actually made an effort, a sincere effort to make sure that East Germany caught up to West Germany. Now, of course, it hasn't sort of caught up completely, but let's put it this way. If the German government had basically done what our government has done to leveling up East Germany as it has, shall we say, with the rest of these left leveling up promises, East Germany wouldn't have been nowhere near where it is now. That is certainly true. So, it's sometimes swings and roundabouts, folks. I know a lot of you German viewers very often sort of don't fully agree, but I'll tell you now, I'm jealous, and certainly I think a lot of other people in the UK should be very jealous looking at how your government has taken that entire project seriously, while our government has just gone, yeah, maybe we'll do it. Here's a bit of money, but it's not the proper amount of money that needs to be done, like in the Levelling Up report, which had Rishi Sunak's fingerprints all over it, cutting and slashing huge amounts of money away from it. But what have we seen here? Not too surprisingly, the Leveling Up Fund has been directed at affluent areas, areas that do not need more money because they're already well off enough to not need this money. But other areas which are crying out for investment, for this leveling up money, just haven't received it. And of course, this was one of the big promises of certainly the 2019 general election under Boris Johnson. Has become certainly a core pillar, or is meant to be a core pillar of the Conservative Party, which, again, so much for this strong pillar. It hasn't, certainly, shall we say, proved its test of time, but it once again has failed. And this all goes back to what I was saying right from the very beginning, right around that general election in 2019. Do not believe the hype around leveling up. David Cameron and George Osborne proclaimed about the Northern Powerhouse, the exact same thing. But of course, they didn't fulfill their promises on that. Well, they did sort of. I mean, Leeds railway station got a new exit, but whoop-de-doo. That was about the extent of what at least Leeds saw of the Northern Powerhouse Regeneration Fund that went in to the city, and that was basically all it achieved. You got a new exit to, or entrance and exit to, Leeds railway station. And to be honest, I have used it a fair few times, but I wouldn't really call it a massive economic leap to the area, especially. But there you go. So obviously, not surprisingly, this money has been very, very much directed heavily, certainly at the southeast. It seems to have gone to a lot of, shall we say, Tory areas, certainly among what we can certainly see, the blue wall areas, and even Tory potential seats in the red wall, those red wall Tory MPs, who we've said right from 2019 should be incredibly nervous about those promises being fulfilled or not. Because, interestingly enough, there was a poll, and it was asked this, comparing northern voters to southern voters, about what you think of the government keeping, or at least fulfilling, their promises of levelling up. Would it cause you not to vote for them at the next general election? And of course, down south in these blue wall seats, or the southern voters, only about 30% said that they would consider not voting for the Conservatives at the next general election if they didn't fulfill their levelling up promises. Then, of course, switch up to the northern voters in these red wall seats, these left behind areas, these seats that all of a sudden the Conservatives proclaim to really care about, but certainly didn't really show that they'd cared about at all. And of course, even now, making pledges to suddenly care about these seats, they haven't fulfilled on them. And again, these promises today of this whole levelling up fund have shown that once again, they do not care. And of course, the big factor which should worry those red wall Tory voters is this simple number. When asked, just as the southern voters were asked, what do you think, or at least would you vote for the Tories again if they did not fulfill their promise on levelling up, 70% said they would not. What are we seeing here? Once again, Tories not fulfilling their promises on levelling up, not making the proper commitment to these areas that desperately need this funding, this money, to be able to level up, to be able to catch these areas up to the rest of the country. It's not happened. And of course, in Conservative Home, there was a piece today written that, don't worry about it because, levelling up should be a, decades-long, multi-generational affair. And yet, the Conservatives could have done that. They could have committed to such a program. Shockingly, they could have maybe even retained those seats if they had actually bothered to care. But of course, once again, the Tories are showing they really do not care about these red wall seats, these left behind areas that are unfortunately once again being left behind by a very, very, very observable fact. I'll tell you now, these red wall voters are certainly going to make the red wall Tories pay at the next general election, which is going to lead to a big, big defeat to Rishi Sunak. So, as always, guys, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, as always, guys, thank you very much for watching. And of course, we'll see you all next time.